Good morning, everyone. Thanks for coming. Just a couple reminders. Please turn off your cell phones. As you see, we've got the sales table at the back. We have a couple t-shirts of patterns that Ricochet designed, Liberation on Wearing, and this benefits not only the deceased, but also living beings. We also have the Liberation on Sight that Ricochet wears on his shirt, for sale back there. Lunch break will be at noon. Several of our Dharma sisters have made some light snacks. We'll put them out on the translators table after they break for lunch, so you can help yourself. It's just a light snack. So we're very grateful for that. And we will break at noon, and then Kempo will give a teaching while Ricochet goes and has rest, and he will return later in the afternoon. Enjoy.
Opening prayer.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for coming. So we're going to do the opening prayer first. This book, page 3. Medicine Buddha Sadhana, page 3. All mothers and beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstacles who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and nation. May they experience happiness, be suffering from suffering, and send our extinguished in the still unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Buddhahood. All mothers and beings, especially those enemies who hate me, obstacles who harm me, and those who create obstacles on my path to liberation and nation. May they experience happiness, be separate from suffering, and save our extinguished in the still unsurpassed, perfect, complete, precious Buddhahood. Dalai Dhamma se pera, Toba se pege, Dharma Dam Dam Jin Jin Be Barada Ju Bara se Ba, Tam Je Je Zoro se Be, Anam Pa Da Nyam Be Sen Je Dam Je Dewa Dam, Deve Je Dam De, Dongarar Dangar Yordu Lana Me Bayan Da Bara Zobe, Sanjorum Boje Do Bara Zo. Thus until I achieve enlightenment, I perform virtuous deeds with the body, speech, and mind. Until death, I perform virtuous deeds with the body, speech, and mind. From now until this time tomorrow, I perform virtuous deeds with the body, speech, and mind. Next page. We take refuge in the kind root lama and the lineage lamas. We take refuge in the deity of the mandalas of the yadams. We take refuge in the order exalted Buddhas. We take refuge in the perfect Dharma. We take refuge in the excellent order of the Sanghas. We take refuge in all the noble dhakas, the darkness, and the Dharma gardens, possessors of the eye of wisdom. Page 5. Until I attain the heart of enlightenment, I take refuge in all the Buddhas. I take refuge in the Dharma and the likewise in the example of the Bodhisattvas. As the periods of Buddhas invest the enlightened mind and the progress of the Bodhisattvas path, I true for the benefit of all sentient beings, giving birth to Bodhicitta, and apply myself to complete stage of the path. In the Buddha, the Dharma, and the Sangha most excellent, I take refuge until enlightenment is reached. By the merit of generosity and other good deeds, may I attain Buddhahood for the sake of all sentient beings. Page 6. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. May all mother sentient beings, boundless as the sky, have happiness and the causes of happiness. May they be liberated from suffering and the causes of suffering. May they never be separated from the happiness that is free from sorrow. May they rest in equanimity, free from attachment and aversion. My Nanga Dai Nyam Sim Jim Dam Jim Dewa Dam Deve Jadam Dembara George Lungara Dam Lungara Jadam Dawara George Lungara Mebe Dewa Dam Dawa George Nyering Jadam Nyedang Jaru Anyama Debara George. Page 7 long prayer. I bow down respectfully with my body, speech, and faithful mind to all Tathagatas in the 10 directions. Those who have already reached the Tathagata stage, those who are reaching it at present, and those Tathagatas still to come. Through the power of Samantabhara's prayers, may all Buddhas manifest vividly in my mind. I prostrate to them, multiplying my body as many times as there are atoms of the earth. In each atom I visualize as many Buddhas as there are atoms. Surrounded by countless Bodhisattvas, thus all space is filled with Buddhas and Bodhisattvas. I praise all Buddhas through manifesting, chanting, expressing the great ocean of their excellent qualities. To all Buddhas I make offerings of various pure flowers, flower garlands of music, anointing oil, manifesting light, and fragrant incense. I make offerings to them of fine garments, perfume, and perfume, pearled high as Mount Meru, and orange the most beautiful way. I visualize the highest and most extensive offerings, and offer them with great faith to all Buddhas. I prostrate to Buddhas and make offering to them, following the deeds of the great Bodhisattva Samantabhara. I confess to you, Buddhas, whatever negative actions I have committed due to the power of anger, desire, and ignorance. I rejoice in the merit of all the Buddhas in the 10 directions, of the great Bodhisattvas, and the Pacceka Buddhas, those who have attained Aharashet, those who have entered the path of Aharashet, and all other beings. I request to all great protectors and Buddhas to turn the highest way of Dharma, as they display the darkness of beings in the 10 directions, and leading them gradually to the enlightened state. I supplicate those Buddhas intend to pass into Parinirvana, to live long for as many eons as there are atoms of the earth, in order to benefit all beings. Whatever merit I have gathered through prostrations, offerings, confessions, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate. The ground is sprinkling with the scented water and strewn with the flowers. It is adorned with Meru, the spring mountain, the four continents, the sun, and the moon. As Buddha feel, I offer it. May all sentient beings attain the happiness as Buddha feels. To the lamas who possess the three kayas, I offer the altar in all sacred offerings, with my body, word, and all that is visible. Please grant me supreme realization and enlightenment. Whatever merit I have gathered through prostrations, offerings, confessions, rejoicing, beseeching, and praying, for the sake of the enlightenment of all sentient beings, all this I dedicate. Om Guru Renamendra Punjana Samudra Savarana Samaya. We chant the Tibetan, the short mandala offering. Saye Bije Zoye Medoram
So the Chinese channel is 89, and can everyone hear me well enough with this microphone in English? Yes? Okay, if it's loud, I need a different microphone, please.
Go ahead. 말이 용어실을 때라고 자꾸 그래. 저는 사지 가대 조사치 보이겠지. 아주 인고로 어디서 좋습니다. 내가 사지 마음고 사지 나가 사지 탑지 성격과도 여러 마리 사족 생물이 대마기와 지어 탑 지어면야 탑 공을 고도 별로 탑 이렇게 탑만 까와미 봐지 이 속담 마술 남들 마선 손발이 들이들이 사족 생물이 한테 리바라 저 속담 하수 찍듯 되네 그래서 뭐네 방어 좋아해 나디 지방아 나와가 못하지 유주알이 제대로 가지 있는데 라마생이 나나서 와랑 가리고로 쪽을 찌다기 나오니 좋다 용도 선양이 되는데 비토를 피마치고 요래 대다오든 지고 요래
Good morning, Dharma friends. So today we have a teaching on the fivefold path of Mahamudra, according to how it is referred to in the Jigten Sumgon lineage. And so, that being the case, one might think that this is a teaching that is exclusive to the Jigten Sumgon lineage, but that actually is not true. It might seem that way if one doesn't really understand the meaning, but actually, it really actually represents and constitutes the essence of all of the Buddha's words, the essence of the four major lineages of Tibetan Buddhism. And that essence actually, in brief, is the practice of bodhicitta. And in that regard, the Buddhas of the past and the Buddhas of the future and the Buddhas of the present time all really teach just one thing, and that is bodhicitta. So all of the Dharma teachings are nothing but a method to give rise to bodhicitta where it has not yet arisen, and to not let it decline where it has arisen, and to further and further increase bodhicitta. The teachings are rich in methods and can be practiced with the least difficulty, and consist of three levels of the path. There is first the individual liberation, the Bodhisattva path, and the Vajrayana path. And the practice of bodhicitta is the essence of all these three levels of the path. And Lord Jigten Sumgon had then compiled the teachings that he himself had received from his guru Mahamudra, and he made it into a path that consists of 5 essential points. So this is how it is then taught according to the Jigten Sumgon lineage. However, you can actually visualize or practice any guru or any yidam in the context of the fivefold path. And that is because this is something that all the lineages actually practice, and therefore no matter what lineage you normally practice, this fivefold path is very beneficial, good to understand for anyone really.
대회들에다가 이 지방안이 또 사족을 생고 봐서 이 파티단들 나고 봐서 이랑을 누고 봐서 이 사자적고 봐서 이 지방 그다 단지 모아서 이 지방안들이 이 좋다 쓰이나 참아되냐 미지야리 이들 도마다 상속의 생고 제지 배자들이 상민께서 따라오를 해서 이제 잠깐들이 이제 그리고 제가 고디오스 들이 그렇게 답게 고타바 주 이제 이제 요래 이제 참말 배게 들이 마게 들이 안 놓고 총통대 쇼를 진짜 요배 들이도 키고 못지게 뭐 보람 들이 상민께서 따로 배라 가리기 하에 배나 솔라리 소드르면이 도마니 도면마리 다데 요리 좀 도산지 리세벨 통종 다디디 다지게 이비를 로다지를 너도 나오냐바지 메르차야 그리데 랑기디 로디 다지 쇼는 일 자원을 싸우는 마다나 조배 펜싱이나 가차로 버리 잡도 대처로 말이 랑쪽부터 오지서는 이 그림을 놓아대구나 내가 뒤에더니 랑 소리 마세들이 다 들었더니 가시 같더니 랑 낭상 주고 정서봐 들이 가시 같더니 약합지 정서에서 봐 들이 직진이 따와는데 이비 소원들이 시작 주고 요래 대회 삼형제다 다디 이제 다닐 때다 대다한테 삼형제지 다들 오나 세대 저도 삼형제는 돌아 들이 용띠부터 또 시작 지는 요래 들이 다디 작업다를 양산을 쳤다면서 요래 삼형제들이 말로로 차고 요래 옛날 문제에 따마도 요 말이 등상답에 따마고 요래 나를 뺏어봐서 주는 거래 대표가 뭐가 하고 말이 애들이 뭐가 되게 참았대요. 나가 봐도 좋아이 등산가를 들들이 속성 하선들 랑가스플로 같이 보선을 했어. 랑가치 보선을 들이 소타디 배나 못하다 그래서 나 되니 동안들은 랩들이 다 신경을 소타를 참마고 요래 나 참고지고 랑주고 들이고 로토고 요래 배래 라가 소탄데 못한다고 얘기하시. 사실은 오 다치 지고대 다치 보말이 대체로 진짜 내가 저것도 또 말이 이빈 사람들이 제일 나서 이빈 사람들이 딱히 따뜻한 사활라 제고 들로 나가서 김매트게 가지고 차오는데 이빈으로서는 대체로 유가고 요래 가위 다쳤고 요래 대체로 리리자고 얘기하시. 그러니까 리복 사복 동복도도 사족성을 남들이 열리라고 그러지. 들이 대리적 시합 지원들이 상하를 한 데들이 남을 가고 그러지. 상하들이 같이 버리 로터들이 누구라고 그래. 사람을 좀 아미가 로터고 그래. 이랑 같이 보는 게 그래서지 말들이 람들 고아라고 그래. 그때 배우고 그러지.
So to summarize the fivefold path of Mahamudra, so first it begins with the bodhicitta, and secondly we practice the yidam, deity, thirdly we practice guru devotion, fourth we practice Mahamudra, and then fifth we dedicate our roots of virtue as an antidote to self-grasping. So again, this is a practice that is actually practiced by all the lineages. It always begins, for example, with the precious bodhicitta. All the different paths consider love and compassion really is most important. And now to clarify the meaning of the fivefold path of Mahamudra, Khen Rinpoche had written this commentary on the fivefold path and also printed that in this book here, and he made it really he presented it in a way that is really accessible to people so they can understand the meaning very clearly, and therefore it is really very beneficial to read his instructions. And now I'm just going to give a few words of introduction to that, also according to my own understanding. So first of all, the first point is to cultivate bodhicitta. And according to the fivefold path, bodhicitta, an example of bodhicitta, like an analogy, is a horse. And so why is that? In the 37 Bodhisattva practices, it says, all suffering without exception comes from wishing for one's own happiness. The perfect Buddhas arise from the altruistic mind. So that shows the meaning of the horse actually. There is basically two horses. There is the horse of self-grasping and there is the horse of altruism. The horse of self-grasping is this concept, this feeling of I, there's a me, that is one. And then the other one is the altruistic horse. So if we are riding the selfish horse, and we don't think about others at all, then eventually we will separate from all our friends, and even in this life we'll feel lonely and will not be happy. And on the other hand, if you're riding the horse of altruism, first of all, you will get through life happily on your own, like in a happy way, but then also you are able to do great things for others. For example, at least you can do good things for your family, or even more, you can do good things for your country, and so forth. It is because of altruism, even in a mundane, an ordinary sense, if there is altruism, wisdom increases. So if you have this horse of love and compassion, and you always keep that horse, you ride that horse, then the perfect qualities of wisdom will increase further and further. Self-grasping is like a block of ice, and this ice block will it will pull you down. It will you're hit by this ice block. It will drag you down over and over again. It will always bring you down. And you can see when you give rise to a mind of love and compassion, you feel much more at peace and relaxed. So there is those two horses, but I feel nowadays, personally, I feel that nowadays there's more than just, many different ways to go. There's not just a horse. So there's one example that I made up myself actually, and I'm not sure if that actually is appropriate and really corresponds to what we're talking about. So if you find something wrong with that, you are welcome to say that, to challenge that example. But anyways, the thing I came up with for the 3 levels of the path now. So we have said there's the individual liberation, the beginning, then the Bodhisattva path, and the Vajrayana path. So to me it seems that the individual liberation path is like a car. So you're driving in a car. When you are in your car, you are on the road, you know where you're at, you know where you're going. And then along the way you have to follow the rules of the road. There's many laws. And so you're kind of on your own. That's the individual liberation path. Secondly, the Bodhisattva path, here you realize that I cannot only think about myself. I have to cultivate an altruistic mind. And only then can I really do great things. So when that arises, it is like when you begin to think about others, then you change the vehicle. So in that sense, it is when you have cultivated perfect altruism and you have patience, you're able to endure all kinds of difficulties for the benefit of others. There's actually many stories in history of people who have done that. So in any case, the vehicle for a bodhisattva then is you become like a train. So a train is much faster, and a train also doesn't have to go around the mountains. It cuts right through the rocks in the mountains, like through a tunnel and so on. So that's much faster already. And then even faster than that is the Vajrayana path. So even more profound than that. And the Vajrayana path is like going in an airplane. So going in an airplane is much faster, but it's also much more dangerous. So if something happens, then it's much more dangerous. But if you know how to practice the Vajrayana path, then it becomes an extremely profound and extremely powerful and quick, a swift path. So to myself, I found that this is a very suitable example.
다다다 다문을 바카시 대와이를 동네 요리 동네 방고 로요는 어떻게 적하는 소리 하고 말이야. 내가 저기 그걸 동네 요리 제가 기왕 맞세 겨든 뭐 이렇게 다른 거 보면 잡고서 길로 거기 내와 당 내가 저 상태 발전지 내가 그 강이요. 같이 랑이게 돼서 보여 같이 랑이게 동네 요리 제가 어디 절 맞고 기왕된 말이지. 기왕들이 마마치대 다들 또 레좀 좀 먹게 뭐 레좀 이렇게 다다도 이제 다니 제시 가지. 오 다다도 이제 눈이 강해서 저 유무발에서 유무가 강해서 다리서 하고는 들이 데려지네. 다른 방자하는 소다를 오 소소로 동네면 좀 제도 동네 저 하고들이 다 유무가 방자지 로시고 내가 출바지 소탈게 같이 보고도 이제 탐치고 그래. 다시 뭐 어디 나중에 올라고 말이 등이 마시나 여기 방송이요. 같이 다 등이 요 말이. 다니까 때에 다 늘어나 다시는 등이 매만하고 자유리 만대는 저기도 그렇고 말이 지금 때에 되고 요 말이. 라면 배 등이 요 말이. 라면 배 등이 요나 이렇게 다 방송 관리 오 저기 하고서 다들 등이 땅에 이렇게 저 바다 마음과 등이 빵터가 예를 들다 동네지 공 동네지 자와 강도랑 용광 무지네 들들 소살고 빵스하지 내 빵을 같이 빵들이 알아는 게 다른 빵은 양자연 거요 알아서 있잖아 잘 들 자와지 강이 것도 되는 시했다지나 나디니고요 나디의 빵 마찬나 그 용광 같이 빵을 빵터고 없지 들 제를 다 상속성을 저 상들 단지를 왜 바통터고도 너무 자와요 뭐가 단지에서 하고를 소설을 가면 다디 주방문이나 뒤에 방어다가 다스 가리 방어도 좀 되나 다산지 좀 이제 이 그림을 놓지 걸 다디 오면 다디 기분이 힘이 오면 돼 오늘들이 상축 생존을 상축시만 가리 둘이 이비로 또 이시나 주 다디 바창도 그랬지 이비로 언니 말하고 그랬지 다디 이제 담만 차롱도 그랬지 대다 이지는 다 한번 튀지 사소수용 튀 그렇지 상모도 당내 되려면 쌈을 틀려 상모도 들이 쌈이시라 다 운이 대해서 좋아하니 대를 하고 그래 투바잖아 그 비말이 오 습기섭지 되어서 되이지 누구도 가서 잘지 다시 나도 보래 내 역할이 동이 역할을 하고나 빵도 요말에 뭐 뒤지 발상을 감되는 거 얘는 말이 딱히 딱 어떻게 그니 레이스 하고나 다 싸비시라 들이 제일 되겠다 눈이 sem 시라걸 때니까 유무가 빵을 탑 다 만나서 세상을 안 거래 돼 그리고 비시라 들이 특별히 나타고 뒤 봐도 삼삼을 동선 딱히 탐 그리고 내 하고 때 싸비시라 들이 뒤에 공들 타랑이 시락 때문에 봤다고 그래서 하고 들고 비시라서 이 썸을 뒤에 소탈극감이 노래 하고 때 상심을 다 좋은 거요래 남 그만이 너는 더 그래.
So the first practice is the cultivation of love and compassion. And within this first point, actually, the first two paths are actually complete. The path of individual liberation and the bodhisattva path. Actually, when we first say the first method is to cultivate bodhicitta where it has not yet arisen, that actually corresponds with the individual liberation path. And mainly on that level of the path, we cultivate an understanding of the four thoughts that turn the mind from samsara, the preliminary practices. First, we need to understand the suffering of samsara. If we don't understand that, and if we don't understand karma, we will not know the real source of our suffering. And then one thinks that I'm trying to be happy, and no matter how hard I try, I still suffer all the time. So many people experience that in this world. Some people are always happy, some people are always miserable. Even though we try to be happy and we don't want to suffer, we try to get rid of our problems, we can't. No matter how hard we try, we still experience suffering. So here it is first important that we understand the workings of karma and past and future lives. So in the beginning, in the opening prayers, we say, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness. What really is that? What is the cause of happiness? Some people naturally in their life, they're always happy. Everything goes well. And others always run into difficulties. So there is a cause for that. It doesn't happen without any cause. And it's not just this life. It is not just caused by this life. It is said, if you wish to know what you did in a past life, look at your present body, your present life. Then you know what you did in a previous life. So this is how we are introduced to karma. And if you understand karma, then you will be able to accept the suffering you experience in this life, because you know why you suffer. It has a cause. And the cause are one's own afflictive emotions. And where do they come from? They come from this concept of me and I, the self. So if you understand that, then you have a way to avoid suffering in the future. So then you know that all of my suffering really comes from this selfish mind of me. So first, this wish to abandon the afflictive emotions arises. So in the beginning, we listen, we hear the teachings. And now we really think about it. We really analyze it and think that I don't want to suffer, but why am I suffering? And then you hear the instructions on karma and you really reflect upon that. You really analyze that. And those people actually often, because they suffer, they begin to analyze that. They know that there is suffering and they want to get to the bottom of it. Often when everything goes too well and there's not much suffering, they also do not have a great interest in Dharma practice, because everything is all right. They're healthy, they're happy, everything goes well. So they feel that everything is fine. They don't need any practice. However, it is not just this life. And even in this life, anything can happen and we have really no control over it for the most part. And then suffering comes our way anyways. And if it comes and you understand karma, then you are able to accept the difficulty you experience, and in the future, therefore, you are able to avoid more suffering. So it is important to understand that, because often people don't like to hear about, that's why they don't like to hear about the four thoughts. It makes them feel exhausting, and we just talk about suffering all the time. Nobody wants to think about it, but then we do encounter suffering, and therefore it is good to know what is the actual root cause. So the path of individual liberation recognizes that the root cause are one's own afflictive emotions. And on that level of the path, the main effort goes to abandoning those afflictive emotions. But then one realizes that however many afflictive emotions one gets rid of, more arise again and again. It is just like you're shaving your beard every day, next day beard grows again. You have to shave it every day. So just like that, you have to cut through the afflictions every day and then they come again. So then you begin to think about it. Why is that? So you think about it more on a more deep level. And then you realize that it's because of self-grasping. That is why they keep coming up. No matter how many afflictions I eliminate, they come up again because I still cling to myself, this idea of the self. And when one realizes that, then one enters the Bodhisattva path. And this path focuses on eliminating self-grasping. One realizes that at the root of all these afflictions is self-grasping. And then one finds a method to eliminate that. And what is the method? The Buddha had said, if you give rise to an altruistic mind, self-grasping diminishes. And if you're selfish, then you cannot give rise to a genuine altruistic mind, the precious bodhicitta. This term bodhicitta itself, it consists of two words, changchup or changchupsem, which means basically to purify and to master or to accomplish. And so it happens actually simultaneously. The moment you give rise to or accomplish just a small moment of altruism, self-grasping becomes purified already. This altruistic mind is like the sun, and self-grasping is like an ice block. And that is what you need to trust in. When you trust in that, then the qualities of listening or learning the Dharma arise. You understand the quality of bodhicitta. So once you understand that, then you have to reflect on that and really ask, is this really true? How is it true? So you develop the wisdom of reflection. And through reflection, you come to a conclusive understanding. You feel that this is really true, a real feeling arises. And only when that feeling arises, only then have you really understood. If you only learn something or hear something, that alone is not sufficient actually to acquire a real understanding of something. That's not a real understanding. So we say those prayers, may beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, may they be free from suffering, the causes of suffering. But so we hear that, but we don't really actually care all that much about what we actually say. And that is because we don't understand it to its depth. We don't understand those real causes, so we don't really practice it. Therefore, it is important to not just leave it with that, but really think about it, really reflect on that, to develop this wisdom of reflection, of contemplation. And when that wisdom arises, it is actually this wisdom, this awareness, that is the real method, and to abandon the afflictive emotions. And that's then this actual application of awareness then becomes the wisdom of meditation. So first we develop this wisdom of hearing or listening, we listen to the teachings. Second, the wisdom of reflection. We analyze it, we reflect, we contemplate, and we come to a real understanding. And then we apply it, we practice it, and that is how we develop the wisdom of meditation. That really then, this wisdom then really eliminates the afflictive emotions. So again, this first point, this first level includes the first two levels of the path of individual liberation, where we first understand suffering, as well as the bodhisattva path.
야 상태 좀 내라 야 비상 사야만 보여는 남은 거 정보면은 딱 동네 네가 강에 오면 딱 고도라지 딱 요래 야 갖고 최고 탈때 도로 장성 그 요래 대담을 동이 제가 그 싸워서 상태에 차 제일 맞지가 제가 다로 딱 띵거나 상태 최고고는 다 죽고 요래 상태 싸치 보이면 시 이 지와리 지와 내가 상태 지와리 지와 사람이 차로 크고 시 다다가 네가 동네 돌아 상태에 같은 게 무슨 고조가 나와요 고조서에 사기 시합이 추상태에 사기 추상태다 보자지 왜 자꾸 남디들 족상태다 보자고들이 죽기가 차면 상태 그렇게 차면 내가 통보를 추상태다 보면 잡다 속을 좀더 털지 왜 저를 자꾸 남디게 타바 랑을 하던데 타바 랑을 삼는지 누가다 보자고 얼마지 그래서 보면 좀 털대로 사기 그래서 상태지 최대 상태를 문제있잖아 오 산이 이제 샘으로 찍자고 말했지 야 이게 취시 받을 거야 다 삼는 길이 뭐 조금만 더 광고 보겠다 보자 시요리 뒤쪽 샘도 상태 데이터 별이 싸워는 여발이 오다 산이도 취지 가사가 찹도 가사 말했지 딱 보자면 탑대라는 걸 아닌데 근데 취지가 내고는 가리리 취를 뒤내서 왜 취를 들고 다 취를 소리치 야 주룩주룩 발라다 소리치 뭐 주룩 상고 나도 좀 그렇게 주룩을 당하지 대신에 차단대 출발이 출발이 성을 사진다 야 양고지 집고들이 차단 똑바로 야 정리가 제일 다 출매들아 출매가 있다는 걸 아주라 삼리게도 출해야지 대리 싸고가 사시고가 하고 시래를 대하고는 오 주시보다 용디시나 상태지 용디하고는 주시로 상태해야지 주 종지 미리 싸우요래 며칠도 빼야고 그거 빼도 잘해야지 주저서 돌때 돌은지 저 걸으더니 망고라 뭐가 도지지 거요 무슨 다시 볼 거다 가야만 말이지 대리들이 세미 차단은 또 야들지 너무 저 대리 뭐야 이 somsom 저 시당 세나 목소리 된 소리를 내는 잡을 때 동해상지 시당에서 다 그렇고 셀라에서 공공 동해 야 대본에서 달리고 나서 봐 당시 잡을 때 동해상지 너무 멀리 와서 직장으로 말이 네와 당시 상태에 와서 직장으로 말이 대하고 상태를 용기를 하고는 다 상태에서 시작이지 오 상하지 시간에 시작 쳐버리 시작 때 바로 돼서 봐지 시작 때 바로 돼서 막 하고 그리고 무슨 샘도 빨리 샘파가 오면서 지금 하고 오면 샘지만 로라버리 무슨 샘도 빨리 했지 얘네들이 상태에 우리 차로 맞춰가지고 다 삼바 샘이고 사진 되라래 다 뒤주에 얘네들이 상민이 유라 오나 랑지들이 이빙 도지들 랑이 비고 차고 요리지 남이 빠라더니 상태 쳐보면 나도 서마치 보요리지 저 상태 요리 소바 요리 정말 강리요 그래서 얘는 상태 쳐다는 거 때도 저리지 마크 보고서 상태 오나 마크를 세나요 말이지 원래 술도 성동을 여발이지 마크를 보고서 싸우는 누가 동서만 뚝 뛰는 애들이 예지하게 딱 보자고 스탄보지를 추천을 했어 야 소파 가리키는 강의 같이 뛰나디 무슨 가라사를 갔어요 오 보고서 소파 땅을 뛰라 빠르 쳤지 소파 도상 싸우는 거 봐라 오 다시 봐라 대는지 상태 서로 손을 보고지 정말 싸웠다고 그런 거요래 내가 서로 손을 보고서 손을 거 가리키고 선보고 준 거지 상태가 다 실한데 오 먹고 죽고 대성될 때 나디가 제일 복스는 늘 그 얼마도 제가 팽이요 말이 오 실하구나 오 마음 보고를 찍어요 새끼 당기 뽑아 대가 찍다요 말이 찍어 키우고 이거 다 보고라 팽이요 주시소나 보고를 찍어오고 다다 보고 갖다 보자 하고 그러지 내가 앞에 사족 생명을 주셔야 돼 옛날이야 서로를 보고 당기 위에 닦고 잡아서 세고 닦고 서로 보고 말이니 요 말이지 쳐다시면서 올해서 생치고 사바치고 차래요. 취지는 대해서 사바치고 차로 그래. 취마치는 마을 보리스 마을 또 보리스. 이 사람들이 미마지가 어디 아치고 차. 둘 방을 또 짜서 딱 보고들 공소하는. 다 보고 방을 카카차로 그래. 당한 바로 취미치 사람들이 되면 딱 바로 돌아로 그래. 오, 이 당시 내도 당시 들이란 게 내를 골라요. 소속 상태지 기어서만 이런 필요하다 하지. 기어서만 마사지지 잡고 자고 신은 스피드도 비었고 자고 서 신아 당가 상태 거든가 이제 그도 없어. 대다고 하고 대추하고 그래. 너도 상태 이동 하고 대추하고 그래. 대고지 시합이 대대로들이 가리 제나 답이 줄을 이물로 가리 제나 이분이 있겠지나 라고 가라스나를 깨달은 걸 보고 대답은 용띠로 해서 왜냐 왕교나 십기답기 돌아오고 어디라고 왕가리고 십기나라 패비체 등의 왕쇼요 우사무지 대해서 최고라는 패비요 십기 외에지나 그다지 외식도 그래 뒤에다가 사대의 용띠시나 그러니까 사박가리는 진짜 이하를 패비 내가 패바다 다도 대화도 되고 했지.
And so some people say that I don't need any dharma, so they're not particularly interested in the dharma practice, because as we said, everything is seemingly going well. And then, however, even though you say that you don't want any religion, you don't want to practice any religion, actually, what is the dharma? What it actually is something that actually everyone needs. The dharma is nothing else but love and compassion, and everyone needs that. So there's no basis for saying I don't need the dharma. For example, if you love your family, you love your children, your husband, your wife, that love, that's actually in essence, that's the essence of bodhicitta. It is just that it is very small, but it's the same kind of feeling. It's still the essence of bodhicitta. It only needs to be increased. But that is dharma, that feeling of love and compassion. And when we practice the dharma, the holy dharma practice then means that we develop this kind of love into a boundless love for all sentient beings. That's what we call dharma practice then. But even in a worldly sense, we do need it and have it, because it is the same thing, it's love and compassion. So therefore, in the first point of these 5 points, it says, make an effort, apply yourself in the practice of the preliminaries. And that's really what is meant with that. Preliminary really means, the real preliminary is a foundational practice, is bodhicitta. It is love and compassion. That's the real foundation. So here in the beginning, therefore, we have to reflect on the qualities of love over and over again, until you really see this is the Dharma. And that actually is a feeling that arises in our daily life. You might feel that I love my cat, or I love my dog, or I love my children, I love my wife, my husband, and so on. So if you have that kind of love, bring up this feeling of love. I love my cat or dog, for example. That feeling of love, that moment you feel happy, right? So that's that cause of happiness. You can see it. For example, in a family, you can see when you love others, when you give them love and kindness, then just naturally that comes back to you. It's very natural. Or if you have a dog, for example, and you really love your dog, even if you don't put the dog on a leash, the dog will follow you around wherever you go. It is the bond, the leash of the mind of love. You're connected through that rope of love. So the dog just follows you around. So you can see that this is the power of even the slightest sense of love. It's a quality of love. If you don't have that, even if you have millions of dollars, even if you're very rich, and there's no love in your family, for example, you won't be happy. You won't get along, you will be unkind, there's only suffering and misery. And then often people are so overwhelmed by this misery that they even commit suicide, or they just like tear down their house, or they start drinking and so forth. So that is suffering, there's only suffering. So it's clear to see that the cause of happiness is love. And the Dharma is a method to cultivate that. So that is why we need the Dharma. So in the beginning, therefore, we need to first recognize the preciousness of love and then make an effort to cultivate it, thinking that I need to be able to bring that with me when I die. Even the smallest, slightest happiness that you experience is the kindness of love, actually. It was given to you, we say it was given to you by the three jewels. Because who are the three jewels? The Buddha jewel is your own wisdom mind. The Dharma jewel is love and compassion. The Buddha is your wisdom that tells you to maintain love. Actually, the Buddha himself had said, I can show you the path that leads to liberation, but you have to accomplish that yourself. You have to practice yourself. If you hold on to it, if you maintain love, if you practice the Buddha Dharma and bring with you love, then in all future lifetimes you experience happiness. If you do not do that, if you do not practice, then even the Buddha had said that I cannot protect you. So liberation depends on yourself and your own practice. The Buddha only showed us the method. It is up to us to practice love and to protect it with patience. If we do that, then we are protected. If not, even the Buddha can protect us. So the inner Buddha is that wisdom that understands that and that is able to maintain what we call the Dharma, which is love and patience. So it is all within your own mind, actually. So right now, we all have love to some extent. For example, even a little insect like an ant can take care of its own children. We all have it to some extent. We all have the Dharma really, but we have to develop it. When you recognize that, then you see that Dharma practice is not something separate that we do. It actually is everywhere. It pervades everywhere. It's done at any time. It is just up to us to practice it, to practice the method. We only need to do it. So that is then what we mean with the Dharma practice. And so if you misunderstand that essence of Dharma practice, what is the Dharma, then we might fall into biased beliefs, thinking that, for example, my lineage, for example, is good and they are bad. The other ones are not good, don't follow them. And so in this way, we are actually developing thoughts of attachment and aversion. And the Buddha said that this is not the Dharma. Thoughts of attachment and aversion, selfishness, ignorance are the cause of suffering. They are not Dharma. It's not Dharma practice. We need to be very clear as to what is Dharma practice. Dharma practice is not to engage in some debates, philosophical discussions that we have heard, but Dharma practice is to cultivate love and compassion. So the wisdom within you is the one that understands how precious love is. That's the quality of Dharma is the quality of love. So that is what we need to understand very clearly, because if we don't understand that, then people don't practice the Dharma in a proper way, and many faults come from that. Then they say that our side, what we do is right, and what they do is wrong. And then they are using those words that they've heard in some philosophical debates, in their discussions, to justify their position, and using that to manipulate people, saying that we are the only ones who are authentic and so on. and in that way creating more thoughts of attachment and aversion. That is the very cause of suffering. That is not Dharma practice. These are in fact the causes for the lower realms. Hatred and anger and greed or stinginess and ignorance are the causes for the 3 lower realms. And in the 3 higher realms, also in the human world, we can see the results of greed or stinginess or desire in the form of poverty, impoverishment, or wars and abuse as a result of hatred, or ignorance and stupidity as a result of ignorance and so forth. So all of these afflictions lead to suffering and nothing else in this world. The only cause of happiness is love. We need to understand the quality of love and perfect the paramita of wisdom through understanding that. That's actually your inner Buddha. It is that wisdom that knows that. It's just that until now we didn't know that. So the Buddha introduces us. That's your mind. The Buddha is in your own mind. It's your own wisdom. Our mind is one. We are not separate. You just didn't know that so far. The mind is like light or electricity. It's all one. We're all one. We're all the same. To realize that, you have to cultivate love and compassion. That's the Dharma. So that is what the Buddha in essence had taught. So if you give rise to love and compassion, wisdom arises naturally. And then naturally you will benefit others around you. For example, in a family, the father of a family loves his family, then he will treat them with kindness, and he will be patient with them, and everyone will be happy and love the father. The greater you love, the greater your happiness. Or for example, a mother who cares for her child because she loves her child. She will not be greedy and hold back. She will spare any expense. That is generosity. Then she will never do anything to hurt her child, to harm her child, even in the slightest. And that is morality. And normally people, when, for example, when they eat something and so on, they feel disgusted and they don't touch anybody else's like dirt and food. But the mother would never feel disgusted by her child. She would even wipe it off with her own hand. So that is patience, for example, enduring any kind of difficulty. However, and then also the child always stays in the mother's mind. No matter what the child does, the mother always thinks, how can I help my child? Even if it goes out, the mother never forgets about the child. When it goes to school, the mother thinks about, oh, there's my child. However, what is missing is that the mother, an ordinary mother, doesn't have wisdom, because she thinks it's my child and it's only my child. So she's clinging to the child. And that kind of fixation, this attachment, is actually harmful to the child. It doesn't help so much. If the mother has wisdom, she would think that I love my child, but every sentient being has also been my child. And that kind of love is great love, and that will also benefit your own child the most. So if the mother knows the Dharma, she would think that now in this life I need to take care of this child. I can't take care of all the children, but this child becomes my support to cultivate bodhicitta. And I understand that even though I can't take care of all the children out there, everyone has been my child. Or if you love your cat or your dog, everyone has been like that. Or the cats and dogs have been my child, and so on. So then she would think in this way. And in this way, love increases and attachment decreases. If you don't understand the Dhamma, then you cling to your child or your companion, and then one day when, as a parent, you grow old and the child is mistreating you, then as a parent you get angry and you fight and you even separate from your children. So this is often what ordinary people do who don't know the Dhamma. Even though initially there is love, it becomes spoiled due to impermanence. So everything, happiness and suffering, is karma ripening. And if you have love, then you bring that with you in future lifetimes. So if you know the Dharma, you would think that by all means, that is what I have to hold on to. That is what I have to bring with me to future lives. If you know that, you will think that when I die, I have to die with a mind of love for all sentient beings. I by all means want to bring that with me. If you think in this way, you have understood the quality of love. If you understand that, then you can really say you have understood the Dharma. And then whatever you do, whether you engage in a mundane activity or Dharma practice, there will be wisdom. And as a basis of all your activities, there will be altruism. And if that is your basis, anything you do becomes beneficial. Even eating food, for example, becomes beneficial. For example, when we receive an empowerment, any empowerment, that is why we say in the beginning, you should receive the empowerment with the intention to benefit all sentient beings, for the benefit of all sentient beings. Because this intention actually is your own greatest benefit. Every time you think about sentient beings, self-grasping diminishes more and more. So if you really understand the qualities of love, then whatever you do will be beneficial for this life and for future lives. So we speak about love being the temporary benefit and the ultimate happiness.
몇 개가 쏘면서 이거 쏘면서 야 민康的须知上약한 거 주소 야 로가的须知上약한 거 주소 그래서 도를 싸면서 매라까지로 다 요리 대화까지 되잖아 다 약한 집은 우리 잔에 있다 싸치고리 저들이 약한 때 자기 애들이 소화기 가가 가서는 세대 약한 매고 약간 차고 저들로 했던 들을 잠불름이 약간 당시 약간 변증이나 약간 찍을 약고 채찍을 약고 맞잖아 들으면 네가 강해 사만비 얘들 약하고 싸움 못하는 운이 잔에 애들이 아마 이렇게 약하고 싸움 못하는 뒤치에 받지 그런 거 소리들이 야 매주 벌써 이제는 가지 야 매일 쓰고 좀 당시 야 남발을 돌아가리 따지기도 서면 약하고 뒤가 요새지 당시 싸움 못하는 운이라고 생각이 로로차 따뜻 하자 같이 버리 샤지 사망을 쉬어요 처음에 대가리 약하들이 지기요나 삼지라고 그래 삼지를 이렇게 소신 작은 거지 운이 소화기 쉬어도 그렇지 당호 되게 싫어서 내가 삼지 김만 받아서 그래서 싸움 못하고 삼지도 운이 다시 버리 샤지 딱 뭐가 싫어도 새로운 삼지도 계속 소화거리 삼지도 다시 버려 따지는 그래서 최신의 삼지기나 이 소설 대화도가 야 저기 로바들 삼지기는 약합을 설명해 근데 약합들이 잘 들이 이가 다시 레이더 상통을 상통하면 ram이 좋아요와 별 약합을 얘기 통화 이 처음 고독감이 고도 마음으로 빨리죠 라고 말을 상통하면 소 루이다는 제대로 루이다는 약합보다도 로로가 계속 사주 쓰면 대라고 상통하면 들이들이 다만 고쳐 야 들이랑 그분이 삼지 약합을 얘기 탐지를 대해서 있잖아 들이랑 봐서만 탐지를 고도지 가리 속도 빼라 야 사강을 손 가르쳐라 약간 집안에서 다시 그러잖아 들이 님지 밤이를 들이 가라상을 빨리 쫄랑 가리쳐라 삼지도 무슨 그랬나 니 문에지 삼지 치고 차 삼지 뒤고 차고도 얘다 올때 소소 어서 때 약제지 다다 이 가야매 아무리가 이렇게 가바자시 가바비만 가지고 있는 삼지의 속야 싫어서 못 되고 그러지 내가 사말 상태와 셈로 되고 이때는 강의도 채우는데 강의도 주박으로 듣고 내래 같이 보고 이 니디도 니디 자로 되고 소소 지하리
So it says apply yourself earnestly in the preliminaries, and so that is actually is applying oneself earnestly, making an effort. That is actually the most important line here. That's very significant. These words we really have to remember. So applying oneself earnestly, it really means to make an effort, to make yourself do it, to make the effort until a real experience, a real feeling arises. And actually this is how I myself have done it. I really have made an effort. And so then often people come and say that I'm also making an effort and I'm really try to cultivate this feeling. And for example, I'm trying to see everyone who is older than me as a mother or a father, or everyone who is younger as my child, or everyone else as a friend. Again and again, I'm trying to do that. And then sometimes the feeling still does not arise. So sometimes people feel disheartened by that. So there is one method, kind of a method that I created for that, kind of new, to really cultivate an understanding of that, to cultivate the feeling of it, not just the understanding. The first one is you have to remember the kindness. You need to have a sense of gratitude. First, you remember the kindness of your mother. Without your mother, you would not have a precious human body. Of all the different bodies, like animals and so on, the mother gave us this precious human body, our parents. And therefore, we surely have to feel a sense of gratitude for our parents. That's really extremely important, that this feeling arises of really a real gratitude. And then we expand that. All beings have been our parents. Then secondly, we remember our teachers with gratitude. We have learned a lot of things from our teachers, whether they're worldly teachers or spiritual teachers. Imagine that if you wouldn't have teachers to teach you anything in this world, how difficult it would be. There are many countries where people experience difficulties because of that, because of a lack of education, of not learning anything. And then, even though they are human beings, they often behave themselves more like animals. They don't know what to do. So the teachers are really very kind. So when we speak about teachers or spiritual friends, we are not just speaking about Dharma teachers, but all the teachers, Dharma teachers, spiritual teachers, and worldly teachers. Because even worldly teachers, for example, it is through them that we experience happiness in this world. So this feeling of my teachers are so precious has to arise. For example, science teachers, school teachers, and so forth, Dharma teachers, they are all extremely kind to you. When they teach you just one thing, you can think about that, and a quality can arise within you. And from that knowledge, all happiness then comes. It is like when you hear those words, it is like your mind becomes like a blossoming flower. Your mind opens up. So it is truly important also to remember the preciousness of your teachers. And then even more precious than worldly teachers are the spiritual teachers, because they open the doors, they open up a path for us for all future lifetimes to come. All of the happiness actually that we can experience is really given to us by the teacher, because they taught us how to. If you think about this again and again, you will be able to respect your teachers. And if you respect them, then you will be able to learn something from them, because then you will not be prideful. That's the second point. The third point is your country, and that's really most important. To feel a sense of gratitude for your country. And that is something that actually you have to make an effort in practicing each and every day. Each and every day you have to practice that and generate this feeling. Otherwise it won't arise if you don't make the effort. So for the most part, we can stay in a distracted state and we don't really think much. That becomes effortless in some ways. We just do whatever we do. But in the moment somebody says something negative about you, for example, we are very good with developing feelings about that. Immediately we feel that, oh, he's saying this to me. So in a similar way, we have to make it a habit, so it's very easy to cultivate a feeling of, oh, this country is so precious, for example. And this only comes from habituation. So when you think about the country, thinking about the country actually is a way to develop that kind of feeling on an ongoing basis, because you are confronted with it all the time. For example, when you travel on the road, you're driving on the road. Who made this road? It's the country. Not one or two people can make a road like that. It's the country. Or when you go to a hospital, who made that hospital? It's also the country. Or who made electricity? It's the country. So everything you do actually is a way to remember that, to remember the country, because we're using and doing things all the time. And then always think, how would it be without that? And how good do we have it because we have it? So in this way you really develop a sense of gratitude for your country, and love, a real feeling of love arises. So wherever you go, you can really practice that. And that's what I have done, and therefore any country I visit, I feel that way. May this country be well and happy, and so on. So when you habituate to that, then such a feeling can arise within you too. And so that then applies for all the countries. So that is because all the countries need to be well, not one good and one not doing so good. Then there again is some difficulty. So you think about it in this way. You think about your parents and your teachers and your country. Especially the country is a way to develop an ongoing feeling of gratitude. For example, how would it be if there wouldn't be any police force? Then nobody would be safe from criminals, for example. How would it be without a road? All the conveniences are given to you by the country. So when you realize that, the mind becomes very relaxed. And so that's really very important. I really felt that I should share that with everyone. In this way, you develop love, and that love is yours. And that love melts the ice block of self-grasping. It is that feeling, the actual experience of it. So that is that wisdom that we develop from first hearing and then reflecting. Also, His Holiness the Dalai Lama had said that it is through this wisdom, this experience, that we can understand the quality of love, for example, how precious it is. And then we have to practice it through meditation all the time. For example, if you love your cat or your dog, then you always want them to be happy, and you don't want them to suffer. And if you think that for everyone in your country, then your mind pervades the entire country. Your mind becomes more and more vast. And that is significant when we then come to the meditation practices of calm abiding, through insight, vipassana or shamatha and vipassana. It is when we have such a vast mind of love, in a natural state of patience as the basis, we can really engage in these meditation practices effectively. Or for example, coming back to the country, you can think about the kindness of the government, officials, thinking that they have to work so hard for everyone and endure so many difficulties for our people. Or soldiers who have to go to war, they give up their bodies to protect their country. They're really bodhisattvas. So if you think in this way, actually, that is the beginning point of developing a pure perception. And then whatever you do becomes a cause for you to develop that feeling. So wherever you go, you're traveling on a road, or you're going to eat in a restaurant and so on, or you visit a country, all the time, day and night, it becomes a cause for remembering the kindness and cultivating love. And then in this way, day and night, all the time, love increases further and further. And then this kind of love then becomes boundless, and it becomes stable. And this is how I have made an effort, so this earnest effort here. Aside from that, I myself do not have a lot of learning or good qualities. Actually, ever since I came to America, I don't even know how to make a phone call myself. And I'm probably the only one who doesn't know how to do that. The only Tibetan here in this country. But this is one thing that I know, the quality of love, and this is what I have made an effort in. And I found that if you have that, if you know that, then at all times you will be happy and the mind is relaxed. That is why I am sharing that as a skillful means. So then your mind is at all times happy and relaxed, and from there, whenever you encounter difficulties, then you will be able to deal with them with a kind of a sense of patient endurance. So that is a crucial point really here when it says apply yourself earnestly. So this is how I myself have applied myself earnestly.
그리고 로속적으로 사족서 기와들한테 제지들은 막아봐 들이 빠고 차는 거요. 다 사족서 제요나 들어가 강에 동해를 붙이봐. 이게 따고 잡고 요래 빼나 공식 관계에 들이제나 어떤 사족서 제사로 봐. 자서 것들이 lokking sawakat to kute sabi kebel kangiran makaba no juban part sing ko yo to ta bu ni kesel makaba really the tomata yo ba tri center kesel me wat so ha ko ne tri ta sa ha ke no ko lam la so sa chok sen ti gul ki le ta sa ha ta ji la ta Sahama Poyore, Kajima Poyore, Hasani, the Samba, Kari, Samba, to Kit, Silky, Tonki, Julius Hadi, Joba, Rana, the Hako, the Randram Sambia, such a bay upon my there's some happening for the damp lat, the course of Topasi, but it's a Sahara Ketora, so the Sahara Lambre. Sahara Sirani Lapuja Pora, yet you beat the Saban in Mamma. Rita Pirata, Scandere, that is who local my people put it in the journey of the touch of Pari, and so happy to put it out like it.
I'm studying the essence of the 84,000 Dharma teachings is bodhicitta. So the essence of the Dharma is love and compassion, or bodhicitta. Whatever you learn or reflect upon or practice, the result has to be bodhicitta. When bodhicitta arises, then you have achieved the fruition, the result. And if bodhicitta does not arise, then there might be only a temporary benefit, but you are very far from the ultimate fruition. So bodhicitta or bodhisattva, someone with bodhicitta, they have courage. This term bodhisattva in Tibetan Changchup Sempa, so it's one who has that mind. This Changchup is this bodhicitta, enlightenment. Sem is the mind, and Pa actually means courageous. So such a one is actually courageous. And because they have an altruistic mind, they are fearless. They are able to endure any kind of difficulty for others fearlessly, without any concern for their own well-being. So that there is a sense of courage in the word of the Bodhisattva. The greater our love, the more things we can do in the world or in the Dharma, the more hardships we can endure fearlessly. And finally, one perfects the practice of patience. On the ultimate level, the courage here refers to the fearlessness regarding death, because one realizes that the mind cannot die. It is not born and it never dies. So there is a sense of fearlessness. So that's the first point. And secondly is the Yidam deity. And it says the Yidam deity, the practice of the Yidam deity is the essence of the Vajrayana, the secret mantra. First, bodhicitta arises within one. And then with that as a basis, one engages in the various Vajrayana practices. There are many different methods. There are the different classes of Tantra, of the new and the old systems of Vajrayana. But the true meaning of Vajrayana is really a single one. And that is to understand that all sentient beings possess Buddha nature. It is just that they have not realized that. That is also why we say secret, not because it is intentionally hidden from them, but it is naturally hidden in the sense that they can't see it themselves. So the essence of the Vajrayana is the Yidam deity practice, and that consists of the generation and the completion stages and so forth, as methods to realize the nature of the Yidam. So in the root verse it says, if one's body, the king of deities, is not stabilized in the unchanging ground, the retinue of Dakinis will not assemble. Thus apply yourself earnestly in your body as the Yidam. And then also in the book that there's a teaching that Khenpo Rinpoche had written. So if you read that, it becomes very clear.
대화티서는 교물이 대외를 다 야구분이 있어요. 빵을 버리 샤지 이제는 고아치는 거요리 대체 송대사 대마체든 아빠로 다시 양왕거로 가면 서울에 방송발이더라 말바로도 로마 탐지는 리피에서 동사 나가서 하고 그래 로마 딱신이 말이 버리지 왕거로 가면 로마 탐지는 이제 다시는 말이 버리지 말이 그 뉴를 사기도 속성이 오지 다다 남타는 통야 우리 즉 되게라 가지라 마탐지게 수바 무시 마음고 시자 다들 이런 하고 그래 다다 바로 잡고 그 방법은 이제 따로 요거래 야 también ya si está ayudando na paso está sabe que mal bochi yori de sabe que ya posee ya bochi de chuya ore de sabe como faltona ya bochi está su chaque ore seldo me de ya chaya ore
So, if one lacks bodhicitta, one actually cannot practice the Vajrayana. It really is the foundation of the Vajrayana practice. So first, the precious bodhicitta has to arise. And that means first immeasurable love has to arise. And when that arises, immeasurable compassion will arise naturally, continuously. And as a result of that, finally, you realize the inseparable nature, the non-dual nature of self and others. You realize the nature of the mind. So when you realize the nature of the mind, you realize the inseparable nature of self and others. And so then, even though we know that, even though now we have bodhicitta, we still have those ordinary habitual imprints of body and speech. And the Vajrayana provides methods to purify them. We visualize our body in the form of the deity in order to purify the imprints of the body. And we recite the deity's mantra in order to purify the imprints of speech. And all of that is based on the mind of bodhicitta. Actually, if that is not established as a foundation, then you really have no basis for practicing true Vajrayana, actually. And therefore, if bodhicitta is lacking on the basis, no matter how much you visualize a deity or how many mantras you recite, you will not accomplish the wisdom deity. All you are practicing is a worldly god. So what's the difference actually between worldly gods and wisdom gods? A wisdom god or wisdom deity arises from the ultimate space, which is they have realized non-duality. And that is what we call primordial wisdom. That is the ultimate bodhicitta. Ultimate bodhicitta is primordial wisdom. Primordial wisdom, within that mind there is no dualistic perception. And as you mentioned before then, it is one realizes the non-dual nature of self and other. And on the other hand, if there is a dualistic perception of self and other, then the God is an ordinary God, a worldly God. So that really makes the difference. Therefore, on the basis of bodhicitta, the essence of the Vajrayana practice is the practice of the Yidam deity. So in order to practice it, it says here, you visualize your body in the form of the deity, which is like a king. So it is said that we have found the precious human body, which is like a king among the 6 realms of samsara. But it's not an ordinary worldly king. It is like the Buddha. So what's the king actually? The king that we are talking about here. So a good king has love for his country and subjects and will take care of them with great love. And now in a Dharma sense, now the Buddha had said, may all beings have happiness and the causes of happiness, may they be free from suffering and the causes of suffering. And that is what we say. And when that arises within the mind, when these words arise within one's mind, then one becomes the king of all the sentient beings in the three realms samsara. So what's the difference now between that kind of Dharma king and a worldly king? For example, in the past, when Milarepa was alive, he was practicing meditation in a cave in Nepal, and the Nepali king heard about this yogi meditating, and he sent his messengers to invite him to the palace. So they went there and they saw Milarepa in his cave, having no food, just a few nettles, no clothing, sitting there meditating. And they said to him, it would be very good for you if you came. The king is inviting you. You have nothing. If you go there, you might get some food and clothing. But Milarepa said, I'm not going because I'm the real king. He's nothing. He's not the real king. And then those messengers got really angry and they said, how proud of you to say that, really. You have nothing. You have no food. You have no clothes. What kind of king are you? And so Milarepa said, I'm the king of the Dharma. I rule the Dharma kingdom. And then he gave a whole teaching on the qualities of the Dharma and how Dharma practice benefits all sentient beings and so on. And he said that these kings, your king, it has no substance, no essence. I'm not going. So they got really angry and they said, the only good thing that you have is you have a good voice. It is after he sang that song. So, and then they returned back to the king and reported, and he doesn't want to come. And the king said, actually, he's quite incredible. The king was quite amazed. And then he sent some medicine, some aurora plants, and some cloth and food and so on to bring to Milarepa. And so now, at that time, to a normal person, a worldly person would of course see, what they would see in Milarepa is like a beggar. He's nothing special. They wouldn't see a king in him. And they would see that the Nepali king is the king. He's the actual king. But Milarepa's words have remained until the present day. And nowadays, throughout the world, there are many Kagyu practitioners, followers, and they all follow Milarepa's words, Milarepa's lineage. And it is due to his fame that is spreading around the world that people understand the qualities of the Dharma. And when they hear his name, they join their palms in prayer. His words bring a lot of benefit and happiness to this world, even now. So now we can see who is the real king. It is actually Milarepa. So that's a good way to understand that. And another story is also about Milarepa when he was still as a student of Marpa. And so one time Marpa was giving an empowerment to his disciples. And so that was a time where Milarepa was considered the worst of Marpa's disciples. And at that time he was still being humiliated and beaten and really considered to be the worst of all, the lowest of all. And now at that time Marpa was giving this empowerment, and he actually during this empowerment recognized him as the most precious of disciples. And what he said to show that is, he said that it will be due to Milarepa's perseverance, his courage and perseverance in Dharma practice, that in the future the Buddha's teachings have a life tree. So the Buddha's teachings will remain. So that is what he said at that time, where people might not have really understood what he meant, but now we can see retrospectively that he saw with his clairvoyant mind the future, and he knew of Milarepa's qualities for future times. And on the other hand, if we think about this Nepali king, for example, not even his palace, not even the ruins of his palace are left behind, nothing is there. But Milarepa's kingdom is still there. The precious teachings of the Buddha are flourishing throughout the world in all the direction. So what kind of king is he? He is the Dharma king. He has attained enlightenment. When one attains enlightenment, one becomes such a Dharma king. And because everyone has a mind, everyone can become such a king.
그래서 사지 조리에 남산 창구요에 되나나 걔들이 가시고 사지 조리에 능기 요새 능기부터 그 상속말 보고 다지 마요. 능기부터 남편도 제 마시대로 되어 그래. 제 사지 조리에 상속 보고 다지 바탕을 하면 보러 사지 공방을 야요래. 얘는 사지 조리에 자식이 다들 받았더니 답을 같이 매발 땅을 매기도 말이고 주지 자식이와 대자고들이 대서 못하는 대자 답이 주시고 사시 버리자 사지를 사시 버리자 람나 페이퍼서 지어 대가 이 대가 뭐가 좋다 연말이 사고 말이 바다 무슨 우리 재미있게 고민이 용이 좀 매도 사원도 세계도 자들이 무슨 로마서 계단 다들 남이지를 먹고 요래 뭐나 잡을도 약고 차고 습기 탑지 약고 차고 서비 새끼를 얘기는 잡을도 잡아는 차대 요래 대마이부터 다 잡을는 약합 탑지는 마에 나죠 다다 나죠 잡을는 우리 약합을 랑 피바 대한적 약합을 상대 주어니 약합이 지상기는 그 간이 빼나 야라는 누가 당해야 요래 제라서 왔다기는 샘도 요렇더니 같이 랑도 좋아 좀 더고요 같이 약합도 보자 저거리 그 간이 샘들들은 하고 딱히 또 샘들 줘야 요래 제가 다 사바 샘이가 이게 샘이가 그렇게 상보다는 생기도 상보다는 이 시간 받고 요래 이거 랑도 뭐 상보다는 다 답이야들이 다 타마라시 잡을 지들도 그래 샘들 자기 이거들이 삽질이 요래 삽질들이 시작해요 요래 제들이 사지 나와서기 집어서 공정을 시작 썰어서 다 삽질을 하는 데가 제들이 시작해요 제가 랑지 동인적 타고도 서로들이 하고를 그래서 나도 왕가 랑지 도이 랍르서 사족 선대 개발 계획에 사족 선기라 그러니까 이라들 라스 봐더니 따로 로컬 듣고 요래 배가 와서 바도 집안이 문인 주대 사실 하고 로컬 집안을 가는 경바 로컬 방 아디지 사지 그 생각이 요매 라서 받아면 바고 세고요리 미방 아디 소을 생기바 오미 추리 예 내가 오미 추리 예 동방이 바도지 참 추리 바도 바치고 호리 바스 비사도 선바 여기 바다 바지니 홀로서 되게 막아지 대로 소고요 나 참송에 뜻대로 참 대자서 그랬더니 상하는 양쪽으로 대로고 포고대로서 로고시 감지해지 감들이 생기 동안 힘이 조금을 말하고라 이게 용어리 사계 고마우면 백돌 맞고 봤더니 로컬 조금 그 사계 것은 나기들 상하는 중국에 나오라고 대로리 이제 좀 이게 대상마디나 마하는 거 보면 돼 이제 좀 이게 대상이지 아무랑 따하고 그래 따르는 하고래 이제 가리 하고 사바증이 사족 세버티니 다디메 벌써네 이 차로 대셔네 다디 차로 갖고 대셔네 다 붙여다 잡아줘 생무성 하고 가면서 생기지 말이지 레니공 타대 맞아서 저에 생기지 말고 하고 다 도마더니 이제 좀 이제 세들 개왕마도 시와마도 대다고 하고 상하고 고야를 요래 대다고 같이 고요래 대서 하나 동사기 대리 정답을 있으면 이시도 과태들이 상하고 나니 이제 상태 어떤 우리 또 뭐나 사바스미 재미지 이게 사바스미 등이제 재미 이렇게나 이런 문제지 뭐냐 또 냐서 연구요래 같이 보여래 이제 좀 이제 사실한테 사족선 나가는 거고를 해서
There's the life story of the Buddha. Many of you have heard, and some people who have heard about the Buddha's life story say that you all say that the Buddha has so much compassion, but actually he doesn't have so much compassion because how could he leave his family? He just left his wife Yashodhara and his child and just took off. So it seems that this is a really cruel thing to do, a compassionless thing to do. But actually, the intention behind leaving his wife and child is because he was driven to, he saw the importance of attaining enlightenment. He needed to walk that path of liberation for sentient beings. And that is why he left his worldly kingdom behind. And now, having attained the Dharma kingdom, no matter how much others try to destroy the Buddha's teachings, they still continue to blaze like fire everywhere. You can't destroy them. It is very powerful. And so that is the precious Dharma kingdom of the Buddha that he had created. So when you hear that story, you can also really see the true meaning of that, of what he had done. And his teachings really then bring about one's own benefit and the happiness of others. So when we think about that, when we think about the 4 thoughts that turn the mind and so forth, and how to cultivate bodhicitta, there's many disciples who really engage in practice, and they have a similar intention really, with that understanding as a basis. And they think, for example, may everyone in this world be happy, may I benefit all sentient beings. So now, because of these teachings that the Buddha had given at that time, those who now also cultivate such an altruistic mind also become like a king in the world, actually. And also, when we think about this world in a mundane sense, in the past and also now, there's many people who were able to do great things for their countries, like fight for freedom and serve their country, their people in many other ways. They have been leaders of countries who have done great things. And of course, there's others who also have caused a lot of harm. But what it shows us is that it all depends on the strength of our mind, really. Some people can do great things like that, and some people cannot even make it themselves through life. So we can see that it's all the mind, really. We all have the same mind. It's something that can be made. It's something that we can actually create in our own mind. This power of mind can be developed. And so we develop it by cultivating immeasurable love and compassion, because then wisdom increases. If we only think about ourselves, the mind is very narrow, very small. We can only think about ourselves, and then we might get sidetracked and begin to drink and smoke and so on, and often in the end we commit suicide. So if you want your mind to be vast, then you need to cultivate love. When there's love, wisdom increases. So His Holiness the Dalai Lama spoke about, in these terms, he spoke about the wisdom that arises from meditation. So first you reflect, you really think about it until you realize that love is the cause of my happiness. when you realize that, you realize that this mind is wisdom. From this mind, wisdom arises. And with that kind of powerful mind, I can accomplish anything for myself and also for others. During the empowerment, when we first cultivate the right motivation, we say that I will give rise to bodhicitta for the benefit of all sentient beings. I will practice the bodhisattva conduct that is pleasing to all. So when that arises in your mind, with that basis you engage in the practice of the yidam. Then you can really accomplish the sambhogakaya of the yidam in the second bardo after death. So what is actually the sambhogakaya? The sambhogakaya, or the deity, is that a sambhogakaya possesses 5 certainties. Certainties because sometimes people have some doubts as to whether or not those Pure Lands and Buddhas really exist. So the first certainty is the certainty of the field or the place. And that is the Akanishta Pure Land of the Dharma Dhatu, this field of the ultimate reality is this first certainty. Second certainty is the certainty of the teacher, which is the Buddha Vajradhara. Then there's the certainty of the teaching, which is the Mahayana. And the certainty of the retinue are the Bhumi Bodhisattvas. And the certainty of time is the timeless wheel of time, the endless wheel of time. So when we engage in the practice of the deity yoga according to the Vajrayana, this is how we need to understand the Sambhogakaya and the Sambhogakaya Pure Lands. If we accomplish the Sambhogakaya, we attain birth in their Pure Land. And then actually we will bring about the benefit of sentient beings naturally. Just like the sun rays emerging from the sun, just naturally. When one attains enlightenment, one accomplishes the benefit of others effortlessly. So then from the Sambhogakaya, Nirmanakaya is manifest and so on. So one accomplishes the 3 kayas. The deity is the embodiment of that. So the essence of the Vajrayana is the practice of the Yidam deity. And so it says, if one's body, the king of deities, is not stabilized in the unchanging ground, the retinue of dakinis will not assemble. The unchanging ground here, what that refers to is the ultimate view of non-duality. And so how we realize that is by cultivating immeasurable love and compassion, bodhicitta. Through that, self-grasping diminishes, the ice block is melting into ocean water. Then it becomes vast, and then you realize the nature of the mind. Then you see, my mind is vast. We all have the same mind. We only appear distinct due to our individual karmas and afflictive emotions. But that's the only difference. So when you realize the view, you realize that my mind is never born and it never dies. That is really the essence of the Vajrayana view. And now if you understand that, you have understood really the essential point. So from the ultimate perspective, self and other are inseparable. It is primordial wisdom. So the true purpose of Vajrayana practice is to realize that. That's the ultimate fruition. And to realize that, we need to first develop immeasurable love and compassion, 4 immeasurables. A real experience must arise. And when that arises, when love arises, the mind becomes vast, and then you realize the non-dual nature of self and others. So that is the meaning here of the unchanging ground, or stabilizing in the unchanging ground. It really actually encompasses both kinds of bodhicitta. It should be understood as having the essence of the twofold bodhicitta.
Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme Hum. Om Mani Padme